Welcome to Victoria, where the fun never ends. What do they call Disneyland? The happiest place on earth. That certainly is the most amusing amusement park I've ever had the privilege of living in, Victoria. Well, if you enjoyed the last 2 years of temporary emergency public health powers, then you're going to love the permanent powers that are coming this week. Can you believe it? Everything we've lived under so far for 2 years that has radically altered our way of life, every lockdown provision, every mandate, that's all been temporary. They've been empowered by Section 200 of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act, emergency powers, and they're always meant to be temporary. What they do allow him to do is make these declarations through his, some people say lapdog, the Chief Health Officer, but I would never say that. These directions, these are the current directions that have been enforced since the 23rd of October, which specify mask rules. This is the authority under which police arrest and fine you. They specify vaccination, that they make the vaccinated economy that Dan Andrews keeps talking about. They specify gathering limits, densities in your home, everything, lockdowns. These directions, we've gone into these in full detail on our local site. Go to discernible.locals.com. We did a full rundown on this. You can create a free account there to watch the full video. You just can't comment, but you can watch the full video. These directions disappear in mid-December. It runs out. So Dan is creating permanent rules in the form of legislation, laws, which are significantly stronger than these directions. There have been some talk around whether some of these are valid or not, and you can go to court and have a bit of an argument, and these are hastily made and so on. Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about him creating this week and next. We're talking about him creating permanent legislation, laws, and some of the court decisions that people have been going to court and saying, look, it's abridging my human rights, this isn't fair, and so on. A lot of these court decisions have been saying, no, that's not, you haven't made your argument out, and our job is not to determine whether these directions are moral, and that's certainly the case. It is not their job to determine whether these new laws that Dan is making, it's not their job to determine whether they're moral or right or fair, even in a court of equity. Their job is to determine whether they are valid. And certainly if he drafts them, as I think he will, as he did last time, they'll be lawful. They'll be valid. There'll be nothing the courts can do except for some, very small potential arguments around the Human Rights Charter, but Dan would be aware of that. And last time he drafted this, the last time he pushed through the state of emergency, I warned everyone that he had redefined what a serious risk to public health was, and he had to redefine it in the changing of the Act last time round to reduce the threshold so that a serious risk of material injury or whatever the wording was, to the public of Victoria could be constituted by 0 cases of COVID-19 for any period of time. So he deliberately made it so that he didn't need to have a single case, and it didn't even need to be recent, and he could still declare an emergency. Well, I imagine he'd draft this the same way. In fact, we have some proof as to what he is going to be bringing on. This is a leak from Shannon Deary, who is the state political reporter for the Herald Sun. Shannon says, the Premier would wield unprecedented power to declare pandemics and enforce emergency laws under legislation set to replace Victoria's controversial state of emergency framework. Under the proposed legislation, the power to declare a pandemic would exist even if there had been no cases of a specific disease, in Victoria for a period of time. Depending on how accurate this leak is, that would mean that he can declare a pandemic to exist, regardless of any disease named, any specific disease, or for any period of time. Again, like the previous thing he did last time I explained. Under pandemic-specific legislation set to go before Parliament this week, the Premier would be given the power to make pandemic declarations in 3-month blocks. That's a long time. Currently, they're in 1-month blocks. For as long as scientists considered, for as long as Parliament considered No. Let me try again. I'm not very good at reading. For as long as he considered it necessary. Dan Andrews. Wow. You know, some people have called Dan some names over the times, over the past 2 years. They've called him things like Dictator Dan. It's a bit rough, isn't it? I mean, this isn't Cuba. We don't need the hyperbole, mate. We're all suffering. Just tell it like it is. Be measured. Well, at some point, we're talking about these kind of laws. At some point, we're going to have to admit to some very dictatorial tendencies in our fine premier. Well, that's concerning. This is what's going to be coming for us this week and next in this permanent legislation. Scary stuff. And as I said, if you've enjoyed the way we've been living in and out of random rules that contradict themselves all the time, come on and come off, and playgrounds are dangerous this week but not next, that's all been done under temporary stuff. We're about to get hit with something much more permanent. Then, I don't know who gets in next. Even if Matt Guy and Liberals or whoever decides to come in and win the next election, I don't want them to have those powers either. I don't want anyone to have those powers. I don't want me to have those powers. I shouldn't have those. No one should have those powers. This is incredibly discretionary. Incredibly so. It's basically like a dictator. The only question is whether we'll have a benevolent dictator who will let us live our lives and perhaps won't gas us and perhaps won't put us into a mass grave. All that kind of, people say, oh, he's not a dictator. He's not shooting you in the head and throwing you in a mass grave. Yeah, I agree. Dan Andrews is not doing that at all, no. But he's building up a power base bit by bit. Certainly, maybe not to do that, but he's certainly building up the same kind of executive discretionary powers to do anything. And he's concentrating it in himself. Well, what can you do about it? The reason why it's going to pass, as I said, is because Fiona Patten from the Sex Party, Now Reason Party, and Andy Medic from the Animal Justice Party, and Samantha Rutland from the Greens, they're all going to vote for it. Melting down their phone lines and their inboxes didn't do anything last time. It just made Fiona say that she was being bullied. I don't think it'll do anything again this time. I think the only thing we can do now is to talk, is to make noise. Because I believe people aren't aware of this. Just at the, we can go to the pub now, right? We can go to the restaurant. So when you're talking to your server, when you're talking to the checkout guy in Coles, when you did you hear about what's going on tomorrow? It's intense, man. I haven't liked lockdowns, but apparently he's going to be able to do them permanently. I thought we were getting out of lockdowns. I thought we were on our way out. Why is he making new laws to do 3-month lockdowns? What's going on? Those are the statements, the phrases, the questions we need to be putting in the community, because the only way to break this is going to be like the omnibus bill, is going to be to get people talking and get people aware of what's going on and making enough noise. Hopefully the mainstream media jump on board and we get these bills watered down, this legislation watered down to be something more akin to, I don't know, a democracy. Because at the moment he suspends Parliament. Like, hello, he kicks parliamentarians out. Like, I mean, where are we going with all this? I want to say lying, cheating, stealing taxpayers' money, destroying Victoria. When it comes to corruption, the Victorian government is all in it together. I want to say enough is enough. I want to say no politician in Victoria should vote to give this government permanent emergency powers. This is the words of an ad that we're all working on. But I'm not sure how much we can do, honestly. I think at this point, it's a matter of, if you're going to watch Victoria die, don't let it die in the dark. At least let us watch. Because honestly, that is the scary thing I find about Victoria, which I'm increasingly thinking I should not have come to. I should leave. Everything down here is so shady, so shadowy, so dark. I really can't believe this place. So, if you enjoyed what's been happening, great. Let's kick on. If you think we're now opened up, we're going to keep opening up, well then why do we need these permanent powers? But if you're not happy with what's going on and you don't want anyone to have these powers, just like I don't want Libs to have these powers, then let's make some noise. Let's share this, not just this video, make your own little thing, your own little post. Just make people aware of what's going on in this state. It's not right. It's not right. I really don't. I really think the Libs are, they've done very poorly in the other states and federally, very poorly. So I'm not pushing a political angle there. I really don't know if that's a solution either. But we can't allow Victoria to become this crony state, just this plaything, this sandpit where politicians can play and build little sandcastles and come and smash our little sandcastles. This is not right. There's a reason why there was a mass exodus from Victoria in the last numbers that we saw, where 45,000 have fled and everywhere else have either had a gain or almost no loss, but everyone's fleeing Victoria. We've also had the worst COVID outcomes, deaths, cases, infections, rates of infection. We've also had the worst economic outcomes. We've also had the longest lockdowns. We've also had the most people being shot in the back by pepper bullets in the CBD by police. Like, please tell me by what measure you can now claim that you still stand with Dan. Well, tomorrow we will know more, because we will know about what more about this legislation is. And until then, I hope you enjoy the merry-go-round. And what more can I say except Godspeed, my fellow, at this point, I guess, inmates is the correct word.